guys, so what we're going to be talking about today is going to be comparing rational numbers. So the first thing we need to talk about is what's a rational number? So a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. So we know that obviously fractions can be rational numbers. Decimals can be a rational number because we can write a decimal as a fraction. And percents are rational numbers, along with whole numbers. And these can be positive or negative numbers. The only numbers that cannot be rational, they're called irrational. They're numbers like pi, and there's something called an e. Those are irrational numbers. They never stop, they never repeat, and we cannot write them as a fraction. So we're going to focus on decimals, percents, and fractions. And we're going to be comparing them to be able to determine which number is going to be larger or smaller than the other. So let's just start with 2/5 and 45%. So both of these are rational numbers. 2/5 is a fraction. Obviously, it's written as a fraction, so it's rational. And then we can write any percentage as a fraction, so that's going to be rational as well. Right now, looking at these two numbers, can you for sure tell me which number is larger? Not really. So we have to be able to think of a way that we can display these numbers in a way that we can compare them and know for sure which number is larger and smaller. To do that, we want to turn them into one form that we can compare them in. And the easiest form is a decimal. So we're going to conform both of these numbers and convert them into decimals. So let's start with 2/5. A fraction is nothing but a division problem in disguise. So to turn 2/5 into a decimal, we're going to do 2 divided by 5. We do numerator divided by denominator. And this is going to give us the decimal 4/10. And then we're going to have the 45%. So we have 45%. Whenever we have a percentage, remember, all we have to do is move our decimal 2 times to the left to make it into a decimal from a percentage. So where's the decimal in 45%? It's going to be right at the end because it's representing a whole number right now. And our decimal is always at the end of whole numbers. We're going to take that decimal and move it 2 times to the left. 1, 2. So now we have 45 hundredths. So to be able to compare these numbers, they both have to be in the same form. So they're both decimals now. So that's step 1. The second step is we're going to now compare them. So I'm going to start by looking at the ones place. They're both 0, so that doesn't help me. So then I'm going to start moving to the right each place value. So my tens place, both of them are 4s. So those are equal, so that doesn't help me either. So now I need to move to the hundredth place. I have a 5 on the 45 hundredths, but then I don't have a number in my hundredths place. So if I do not have a number in a place value, what number shows me nothing? And it's going to be a 0. So essentially, this is 40 hundredths. 4/10 and 40 hundredths mean the same thing. So if I have a 0 in one number and a 5 in another number in my hundredths place, which number is smaller? The 0 is going to be smaller. So then I know that 40 hundredths is less than 45 hundredths. But finally, the last thing we really want to do is we want to turn them back into their original form. So we know that 2/5 is less than 45%. And I can tell you 100% for sure that 2/5 is less because I turned them into the same form to compare. Okay, let's look at another example. So let's look at 5/8 and 75/100. So which number is going to be larger this time? So I want to know which number is going to be greater. Make sure you pay attention to what's being asked. So this time I want to know which number is larger. So I need to turn them both into decimals. This one's already a decimal, so I don't have to do anything with that. It's already 75/100. So I only need to convert the 5/8. And remember, a fraction is nothing but a division problem in disguise. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 8, and you get 625 thousandths. Now I have two decimals, so I can start looking and comparing them. I want to start in my ones. Which number is smaller? They're the same, so I'm going to move to my tens place. So I have a 7 and a 6. Which number is smaller? Which number is larger? So for this question, I want to know which number is greater. So which number is bigger, 7 or 6? The 7 is going to be larger. So the 75/100 is going to come first. So 75/100 is greater than 625 thousandths. But remember, we want it to be in the original form. So I'm going to write it as 5/8. So when we're comparing our rational numbers, there are symbols that we can use instead of saying greater than or less than. And they are going to be called inequalities. So we're going to be focusing on 3 inequalities. Our inequalities that we are going to be looking at is less than, greater than, and equal to. So a less than symbol means left number is smaller. So the number on the left-hand side is going to be a smaller number than the number on the right-hand side. The next one is greater than, and this means that the left number is larger. And finally, equal to means both numbers are equal value. So the left number is going to be smaller for less than. The left number is going to be greater than in a greater than symbol. And then equal to means both numbers have the same value. So now let's look at a few examples to see how we can use these. So let's start off with 2/3 and 1/4. So they're both fractions, and it's okay if they're in the same form. We just need to follow the same pattern. So I need to turn these into a rational number that I can work with. And like I said, decimal is always going to be our easiest, because if we leave them in fractions, they're in the same form, but I would have to get a common denominator. And sometimes that can be really complicated. So if we always turn them into decimals, that's something that we can always compare easily. So I'm going to turn 2/3 into a decimal. So a fraction is nothing but a division problem in disguise. So 2 divided by 3, and that is equal to 6/10 repeated. 1/4, 1 divided by 4 is 25/100. So since this is how it's written, I'm going to keep the numbers in the same order. So I'm going to keep 2/3 first. And I'm going to keep 1/4 second. Now I need to figure out which symbol I'm going to use in between my numbers. So if I have zeros in both my ones place. I can't use that to compare. So I'm going to move to my tens place. One number has a 6 and one number has a 2. So which one's larger? The 6 is larger than the 2, so that it means 2/3 is going to be larger than 1/4. Which symbol is going to show me that my left number is larger than my right number? It's going to be my greater than symbol. So I'm going to use the greater than symbol to compare and say 2/3 is greater than 1/4. Let's look at one more example. Let's look at 54% and 6/10. What do I do? So right now, what I would like you to do is pause the video, try to solve this, see if you can figure it out, then unpause it, and then come back so we can do it together. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to turn these into the same form. Remember, we're going to use decimal. So I'm going to turn 54% into a decimal, and 6/10 is already a decimal. So I only need to convert one of them. So I'm going to take 54%, and to go from a percent to a decimal, I move my decimal place 2 times to the left. So my decimal on a whole number is always at the end. So it's going to be right between the number and the percent sign. Now I'm going to move my decimal 2 times to the left. So 1, 2. It's now going to be before the 5, and this is going to be equivalent to 54 hundredths. Now I need to be able to compare them. So I'm going to start with the ones place. They're both zeros. It doesn't help me. Now I have a 6 and a 5. So I'm going to look which number is larger, the 6 or the 5. The 6 is larger than 5, so that's going to be my largest number. So I'm going to rewrite these in the same pattern that it started in. So 54 came first, and then 6/10 came second. And we decided that 6/10 was larger than 54%. So which of our symbols is going to show me that the right number is larger than the left? And it's going to be our less than symbol. So 54% is less than 6/10. Please let me know if you guys have any questions, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.